Hello and welcome back once again to Beware the Q. This video is going to be part 3 of my full All Tomorrows timeline. If you haven't seen parts 1 and 2 yet, be sure to check those out first. And also just a quick reminder to please hit the like button, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. It really helps me out. Now, let's get into the video. Around 40 million years after the Q appeared and began terrorizing humanity with all sorts of genetic hijinks, they suddenly left, leaving behind only their bizarre biological creations and countless mile-high pyramid structures on the worlds they visited. And now, without Q intervention, the former humans will be able to start the evolutionary process once again. Now last time, I went over the 22 plus new species that the Q created from the human genome and gave the year that they first emerged. This all took place between the years 5 and 6000 AD. Since then, we have jumped 40 million years into the future. Am I really going to give an exact year for the milestones that the future humans reach this far into the future? Yes I am. The year 40 million AD. The Q have left. The new humans will have to fend for themselves, sometimes successfully, but usually not. For now, they will have to navigate their respective worlds and the harsh environments within, alone. The helping hand of the Q is no longer around. 40,100,000 AD. The worms, formerly confined to a subterranean lifestyle due to the scorching temperatures of their planet, are now able to come up to the surface. Their planet has cooled significantly now that the Q are no longer around to keep the heat turned up. It's still a hot place, but the tough little worms are able to withstand it. The gentle giants, the Titans, seemed to be doing okay from an evolutionary standpoint. They had risen above their Q-inflicted bestial nature and had begun to regain their sapience. However, in the year 40,100,000 AD, approximately, an ice age began to take over their planet. It would prove too difficult for these large elephantine people to overcome, and they would sadly go extinct around 90,000 years later. On another world, a far-flung jungle planet, the predators and prey have been doing the dance of death for quite some time. Since the Q left 100,000 years ago, the predators have had nobody there to keep them in check, so to speak, and their bloodthirsty nature, greatly exaggerated by the Q's meddling and far beyond any carnivorous predator known on Earth, has caused them to hunt and kill most of the prey. It has also made them begin to hunt each other as well. There are differing forms of predator, some varieties much larger, faster and stronger than others. The larger ones, of course, began to hunt and kill the smaller ones, and the genetically engineered prey has become increasingly rare. They were still around though, and would prove to be vital in the predator's development further down the line. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the mantelopes had long since lost their purpose. They had been kept as living hard drives, singers and all manner of other things by the Q. But since the Q left, the mantelopes could do nothing but graze and wallow in their own misery. Their quadrupedal bodies were unsuited to taking over the technological society that the Q had established on this world, and so most of the mantelopes withered and died. Some survived and began to develop their own societies, with religions based entirely around their agonizing existence. What had they done wrong? Why had the Q left them? Did they really deserve such a cruel punishment? These questions and more would be pondered over for thousands of years, until the unthinking, less intelligent mantelopes, better adapted to a life of grazing in herds, began to overtake the thinkers. Now, in the year 40,100,000-ish, the mantelopes are just another bestial animal on just another forgotten planet. Their sapience is gone, never to return. The future looks brighter for the swimmers, however. An aquatic species on an ocean world, they have managed to retain the spark of humanity within them, even if their marine environment is an utterly alien one. Since the Q left 100,000 years ago, they've been slowly relearning the ways of communication. They can speak to each other in their own way, but comprehending one another is a different matter. Such are the challenges of evolving intelligence underwater. The new humans on yet another world have begun to act rather strangely. Their bodies weren't really modified in any significant way, still very much resembling a human being. Their minds, however, were dulled severely, and their behaviour now is like that of Stone Age man. However, for some reason, these people have begun herding lizards, collecting them, placing them into pens, feeding them. It's unknown why. It's likely that these lizard herders themselves don't even know why. It could be the result of still intact neurons in their brains, overlooked by the Q. Crossed wires, perhaps? They want to start farming animals like their ancestors, but their modified brains have gotten it slightly wrong. You're meant to herd mammals when starting out on the road to civilization, not reptiles. It's business as usual on the Temptor planet. The females, stationary beaked flesh cones, are tended to by the mobile males. Their civilizations have been making slow progress over the last 100,000 years and are beginning to thrive. Sadly, these people won't make it. In a little over 300 years from this point, a stray comet will hit the Temptor's world somewhere in its northern hemisphere and spell doom for this branch of humanity. The bone crushers are still around. Their odd diet of rotting flesh hasn't precluded them from making the most of their existence. There's still plenty to eat, as the Q left behind many new creatures on this world, which all have to expire at some point. The scavenging bone crushers are doing quite well, for now. The colonials, however, are not. They spent 40 million years in their current form, stitched together like living quilts, processing sewage. But now, 100,000 years after the Q left, and with no more Q sewage to eat, the colonials have resorted to cannibalism and the consumption of the waste of their own kind. This thins their numbers, but makes for a rather gruesome existence. They have, however, started to become more mobile. No longer held in place by Q intervention, the colonials have begun to wander around freely, moving around in the way that starfish do. The flyers have become the undisputed rulers of the sky on their world, and are something akin to the birds of prey found on old Earth. No longer in cages or prevented from emigrating across their planet, they have attained true freedom. But the hand flappers, by this point, haven't done quite so well. They gave up their power of flight long ago and show no signs of redeveloping human intelligence. But they do fill a niche nicely on their planet, and their destiny is instead to live the lives of beasts for the rest of their time in existence. The blind folk are still around, underground, but most of their number were killed by the movement of their planet's continental plates a few decades ago. A small number, around 90,000 individuals, have survived, but the glacial constriction of the continental plates is still happening, and by the time another 100 years have passed, they will be no more. Over on the Lopsiders world, these flattened future humans have thrived in their high-gravity environment. Now that the Q aren't around to keep them artificially handicapped, they can get themselves back on track to becoming a highly capable new species. The peaceful Striders are also doing well. However, a new threat is on the horizon. Dinosaurs. Not the dinosaurs of our past, but the dinos of the future. These will evolve from poultry that was brought to the Striders' world, a moon of Jupiter, from Earth long ago. This won't happen yet, not for another 2 million years or so. For now, the Striders can live in peace, but this won't last forever. The parasites have, over the last 100,000 years, begun to occupy many niches. Some attach themselves to animals, some to larger versions of themselves. We'll get to see how this plays out in the future soon. And the fingerfishers are getting on well too. Their lives are quite blissful, as they can now spend their days fishing without the constant threat of the Q hunting them or engineering fish shortages. And while the fingerfishers generally had nice lives, they were practically workhorses when compared to the hedonists. The hedonists don't even have to wait for fish to come along for them to enjoy a nice meal. There's lots of nice juicy fruits for them to enjoy, and with the queue gone, these fruits can now grow unfettered. The Satyriaks' lives couldn't possibly be any better at this point in time. The insectophagi too have relatively simple lives, and have spent these 100,000 years fitting themselves neatly into their insect-eating niche. And the star people, who escaped the queue all the way back in the year 5842, they're quite different now. Life in zero gravity is bound to change anyone. They have been watching over the new humans for most of the time since the queue left. The spacers were, and still would be, no match for the queue if they were to run into them, so they had no choice but to watch and wait for 40 million years since the initial invasions, completely unable to help their fallen kin. The queue had a religion, and so too did the spacers. They were, compared to their modified cousins, godlike. Not on the level of the queue, but still quite glorious. In the spacer religion they were gods and the queue were devils. Entire stories and myths had developed over time, some purely allegorical, and others that retold events that had actually taken place in the distant past. Millions of years of separation had meant that the spacers didn't have anything to do with the rest of the new humans anymore, but they did watch over them, continuously, with curiosity. The new humans below, the ones with some degree of sapience, knew in their hearts that there were gods watching over them, though they were unaware of the specifics. And of course, there are the Ruin Haunters. They have begun to utilize the leftover Star People technology to unpleasant ends. Their messing around with things they couldn't yet begin to understand has caused widespread disasters on their planet. What was once a large, thriving town somewhere on a continent in the southern hemisphere was wiped off the map by so-called wise men, a title they had given themselves, who were blinded by their own arrogance. They thought that what they had correctly deduced was a gigantic terraforming vehicle could modify the atmosphere that had become heavily polluted by their earlier efforts to improve their planet's biosphere. They were so sure that they had gotten it right this time. After countless disasters and lives lost through their meddling, this time they will succeed, and no voice of reason could dissuade them from their rushed experiments. Anyone who tried to talk sense to them was sentenced to exile or death. But they hadn't gotten it right this time either. A catastrophic explosion was the result of their work, one that took the lives of 40,000 Ruin Haunters. The wise men were unharmed. As supremely confident as they were in their abilities, they had made sure to be as far away as possible from the great machine when they remotely activated it. This was yet another failure, but next time they'll get it right. 42,300,000 AD. The following species have since either gone extinct or have become so devolved and bestial that they no longer can be counted as even remotely human. The Titans, status extinct. The Mantelopes, status devolved. The Temptor, status extinct. The Bone Crushers, status extinct. The Hand Flappers, status devolved. The Blind Folk, status extinct. The Striders, status extinct. Sadly, not everyone makes it when it comes to the evolutionary process. But after around 2 million years, those species who did survive are doing quite well in their own unique ways. The worms have left the ground and have begun to live in trees, hanging from the branches upside down in a bat-like manner. Their sapience is slowly returning. The predators have begun to organize themselves into tribes with strict hierarchies and hunting customs. The swimmers have modified their first creature, a small eel-like animal that is well on its way to being fully domesticated. The lizard herders have begun worshipping their reptilian companions in a crude, primitive early religion. The lizards seem to be overtaking the humans in some ways. The colonials are fully mobile and have begun to cooperate with one another in very basic ways. One module acts as a pair of eyes to spot food, while a larger module that it sits upon is fast and strong enough to chase down its prey. The Flyers are rapidly beginning to make advances in their philosophical thinking and are forming ideas that the others won't reach for another 20,000 years or so. The Lopsiders are thriving on their high-gravity world, their muscles having developed to the point that they can crawl faster than a human athlete of old Earth could run. The Parasites have, like the reptiles on the Lizard Herder world, begun to overtake the larger human-derived species in intelligence. They have begun to slowly domesticate them. The Fingerfishers' world is starting to run low on fish. They will have to adapt and start to leave behind their peaceful existence for a more competitive one. The most aggressive Fingerfishers will be the ones to pass on their genes. The hedonists' lives are as blissful as ever, but being human-derived, they aren't content to just lounge around and eat fruit forever. They have, buried deep within, the drive to create new and better delicious foods. They have begun to sit down and fashion complex meals out of the ingredients in their environments with specially made tools. The insectophagi have nestled themselves completely into their niches as insect eaters. They too have developed special tools for the extraction of bugs from within trees and hives. The Spacers are still watching over the rest of humanity with cold detachment. Sadly, over the past 2 million years, their interest in the new humans' affairs has waned. Their religious beliefs have shifted. They have their own issues to focus on. And the Ruin Haunters are still as deranged as ever. Their religion has at its centre the Star People and the Q as divine gods, and the other new humans as devils and demons. They haven't received contact from any of them yet, and they don't want to. The new humans haven't come anywhere near the level of technological advancement needed to make contact with other planets, but the Ruin Haunters know that they are out there. Their ancestors were some of the last to be modified by the Q, and the Star People's technology and data holding systems left on their world contained information on what the Q were doing. The Ruin Haunters had come to the conclusion that, like them, these others must still exist. But the others hadn't been left what technology they were left, and so only they could possibly be worthy. The Chosen Ones. Thanks for watching. Tune in next time for part 4 of the All Tomorrow's full timeline. Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment and subscribe if you haven't done so already. This has been Beware the Q, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.